I think back to my experience with the NES, I can't think of a developer whose games I experienced more of, outside Nintendo themselves of course, than Rare. From 1986 to 1993, Rare put out title after title on Nintendo's little 8-bit history box, totaling 47 games by my count, and that doesn't even take into account the fact they were also making games for Game Boy, Amiga, Mega Drive, Game Gear. They were certainly prolific. The game that always stands out in my mind, and I assume most others when it comes to the NES, was the chaotically difficult to pigeonhole beat-em-up / minigame bonanza, Battletoads, and its subsequent follow-up, Battletoads and Double Dragon. That game was well known for providing an excellent core fighting system and then swapping it out for something different for 80% of the game. Another title I fell in love with was the incredibly difficult pinball simulation High Speed, which once again had Rare's magic touch of providing you a pinball table, but then adding layers and layers of other random excitement on top. You think you're playing pinball 1 minute, and then nope, you're playing a racing game that's also a pinball table, but whatever. The fact is, Rare certainly had a penchant for keeping the player on their toes with mechanics that shifted gears fairly rapidly. Captain Skyhawk is another such game, one that I seem to have completely missed as a child, which is a shame because having played it over the past week, I can pretty much guarantee that it would have been just as much a mainstay as the two previously mentioned. Taking the form of a top-down shooter with pseudo 3D graphics, then swapping to an afterburner-style blaster, then throwing in a docking minigame, then buying weapons and upgrades, dropping off supplies, killing bosses. The one thing you can't levy at this game is a lack of variety. That variety, however, can extend to areas where it's not necessarily required, and in some cases acts as a minor detriment to the game's overall playability. But we'll get to that. First off, what's it all about? You are, as the title would suggest, Captain Skyhawk, and really it's lucky that he ended up going into a career that befitted his name so well. Bus driver Skyhawk doesn't have quite the same ring to it. The storyline is as basic as you're likely to get. Alien invaders have built 4 bases on planet Earth which they're using to feed the mothership. Go and kill literally everything, Captain Skyhawk, you're our only hope. Before we get into the meat and potatoes, big shout out to this title music, which is absolutely banging. Come on, Carol, that's a pity placement if ever I've seen one. 0 points. Poor show. The game is made up of 9 missions, and each of those missions has multiple sections, described in the game's manual in the most bland way possible. These sections are: destroy enemy base, destroy enemy planes, dock with space station, drop supplies in crosses, pick up scientist, and finally, destroy alien space station. Not exactly the most exciting read, but at the very least it tells you what you need to do. The meat of the game is made up of the first 3 sections: destroy enemy base, destroy enemy planes, and dock with space station. And that's just as well, because those are the first 3 sections you're going to need to overcome to get past mission 1. And to really get down to why this game is equal parts fun and frustrating, it's going to be easiest to divide this review into those segments. Destroy enemy base. Sounds simple enough, but shit, balls, arse, twat. Well, at least a bit Carol. Okay, not so simple. The top-down shooter segments of Captain Skyhawk make up the largest portion of the game, and they are without doubt the most difficult sections of the game to overcome. This difficulty lies in a number of things. First and foremost is the scenery. The land, as you'll no doubt notice, is made up of flat land and pyramids. According to the manual, it looks this way because you're actually using some sort of special satellite to view your plane from above. No idea why that's supposed to help you fly the damn thing, but it is what it is. Navigating the levels is something that you'll get used to with quick reflexes, memorization, luck, and consistently keeping your altitude as high as possible. This is one of the things that can definitely fall into the category of maybe you didn't need to add that, Rare. There is, so far as I can tell, absolutely no reason for you to reduce your altitude, whereas maintaining maximum altitude gives you a better chance of avoiding the terrain, while also making it slightly easier to avoid enemy fire. The problem is, due to the requirement of quick reflexes, it's very easy to nudge yourself back down, so you'll consistently need to readjust yourself. And controls are something you're definitely going to need to get to grips with here. Handling your aircraft is like trying to butter toast using only your little fingers. Your plane is incredibly slippery, with a degree of oversteer that takes quite some getting used to. On top of that, enemy bullets can be difficult to spot among the debris of enemies you've already shot down. You'll soon come to realise that your best bet's at keeping alive are to swerve left and right in increments, unless it's absolutely necessary to go full tilt in a specific direction. And even then, you better be able to back it up at a moment's notice and rebalance yourself before you go careening into another bloody pyramid. Now, for all the complaining I've done about this section, once you do get your head into the zone and your fingers have started to lock into the muscle memory required, it can be incredibly satisfying to absolutely nail a level from start to finish. You may feel like it was complete luck, or maybe you've just gotten better out of spite. The results are the same regardless. Weaving in and out of enemy patterns, dodging into a tight crevasse at the last moment, it's a genuine joy to actually get to grips with this slippery sky hazard. You'll eventually reach one of the bases at the end of these levels, and each one is practically identical. It's a shame that Rare put such variety into other areas of the game, but the bosses, which you'd expect to be pretty standout in a shooter, well, they're just kind of nothing. They'll shoot at you from one of three positions, and much like everything else in the game, they'll only ever shoot vertically down. With the level coming to a full stop to allow you to destroy the base, this essentially means you can just move from left to right in one sweep, shooting all the way, and then doing the same back again. Slightly lame, but after fighting through one of the levels to get here, you'll probably be glad to have something a bit easier to deal with. Now, weirdly, you need to destroy an enemy base in missions 1, 3, 5, and 7, but the two easiest base destroying missions are in 1 and 5, while 3 and 7 are the most difficult. And it's mission 3 in particular that I think will stop most people in their tracks, because things just become insanely fast, insanely quickly. Your aircraft moves at, if not twice the speed, even faster, and you've constantly got to deal with an enemy aircraft that chases after you, shooting bullets back in your face while you're also trying to avoid the landscape and all the other enemies. I was honestly about ready to give up at this point. Until, that is, I read over the manual again and discovered an extra set of controls that... Once again, why, Rare? It's cool and all that you wanted to put as much detail in the game as possible, but... Anyway, what I discovered was that holding down select on the control pad and pressing up or down will change your flight speed, but this only seems to work on levels 3 and 7, and it only seems to work on levels 3 and 7 because, again, according to the manual, when your aircraft detects an enemy plane, it will auto-adjust the speed to match it. This means it boosts you straight into uncontrollable territory, so you basically just have to turn the speed down straight away. It doesn't make any difference to the aircraft chasing you, because as soon as you kill one, another one turns up anyway. All it does is make the level, well, closer to achievable. Not only that, you can hold down select and press left or right to do a barrel roll, and in doing so, it lists no tangible benefits. What are you doing, Rare, you absolute lunatics? I've not even got to the point of discussing the special weapons yet, each one, again, replete with their own controls, but we'll come back to that. For now, let's move on to Section 2, Destroy Enemy Planes. Now, as someone who isn't a big fan of Space Harrier or Afterburner, this segment was surprisingly fun, and impressively rendered on the NES. Enemies fly in from all directions, and you simply have to line yourself up and shoot. Every so often, an enemy will fire a missile at you, and top tip, these always tend to come from the top or the bottom of the screen, so keep yourself as central as possible and you'll generally be alright. Each enemy you shoot down gives you credits you can spend in the space dock, but first up, you need to actually line yourself up with the space dock to enter it. Thankfully, that's a piece of piss. Apart from the first time you do it. After that, it's a piece of piss. Although it would be nice to have the option on whether or not you actually want to dock. You may not really have any need to do so if you haven't been firing your special weapons and you've stocked up on literally everything else. But never mind, this is by far the easiest section to deal with, and it's a nice little breather. In the shop you can pick up 4 different weapons. Your first port of call should most definitely be the cannon, because this is your standard weapon and it's what you're going to use for 99% of your game. By the end of mission 2 you should have this at the maximum level of 5, and the difference in shot speed is, quite frankly, disgustingly sexy. The other weapons are, well, they're there, at least. Let's talk about them then, because after playing through the whole game, I think I only used them a couple of times, and that was just when I remembered I had them. Phoenix missiles, used in air-to-air combat only, you press B to lock on and B again to fire. Maverick air-to-ground missiles, only available to use in the overhead sections, you have to lightly tap B to fire this one. Hawk bombs, only available in top-down missions, you have to hold B and then release it to fire these ones. It's just that you'll usually never fire them during a normal mission because you're moving too fast to even comprehend when the best time to use them would be. And the bosses are generally so easy to beat that they're not really worthwhile using on those guys either, especially with a fully upgraded cannon. For my money, a simple smart bomb or shield would have been far more interesting to use than these awkwardly controlled extras, but they're there, at least, if you want to use them, I suppose. Drop supplies in crosses appears in mission 2 and 6, and the level layouts for both are exactly the same, which is a bit odd. You've got 2 holes in the ground, which you need to drop supplies into by pressing B at the correct time. The rest of the level plays out just like the other top-down sections, however, there's no boss to defeat here, only the nuisance of having to fly through the entire stage again if you miss one of the drop-off points. That being said, timing your drop-offs correctly first time is incredibly satisfying. Pickup Scientist is more of the same, mostly, only this time you've got a slightly different boss at the end of the level. One that's a bit more annoying because of how damn close the turrets are to your aircraft. Once you've defeated 4 turrets, destroy the shield protecting the scientist, and that's that. All in all, you'll need to complete a mixture of these sections, 30 in total if you include the final boss, with a handful of lives and a few continues. And whether or not you're going to be able to do that is with a big dollop of good old-fashioned perseverance. Not just perseverance in the usual sense, that of learning the enemy patterns and timing your movement to perfection, much like any shmup, but the perseverance of just dealing with the game's few missteps along the way. You need to combat the game's controls almost as much as you combat the game's enemies. Flying into a wall will get you killed just as many times as a rogue enemy bullet, and the game's final section, which features mines in the sea that inexplicably kill you while you're in the air. Oh boy, oh boy, is that an absolute pain in the cockpit. But it's all possible, it's all doable, and honestly, for as many criticisms I have for the game, I enjoyed my time with it. I enjoyed Rare's signature brand of trying their hardest to make something consistently engaging within a genre that was, even back in the NES days, beginning to feel a little played out. Is it the best shooter in the world? No, it's not even the best shooter on the NES, but it's certainly one that'll keep your attention if you can get past the initial turbulence.